AITA for leaving my fiancée at the altar after she called me by her coworker's name? My fiancée and I were supposed to get married in 3 days, but I'm having serious doubts. I, a 30-year-old man, have been with my 28-year-old fiancée for 4 years, and we've been engaged for 1. Everything was on track for our big day until last night. We were at our apartment, finalizing the seating charts, when she accidentally called me by another guy's name, specifically one of her coworkers. Let's call him Jonas. To say I was stunned is an understatement. I froze and asked, "What did you just call me?" She immediately went pale and tried to laugh it off, saying she was just stressed out and it was a slip of the tongue. But Jonas isn't just any name. He's a coworker she has gotten very close to over the last few months. I've always had a bad feeling about their friendship. There were little signs. She would text him late at night about things that clearly weren't work-related. She would mention office inside jokes that only seemed to involve him, and I once saw his name in her phone with a heart emoji next to it. When I questioned her about it, she insisted they were just friends and told me I was overreacting. I tried to believe her, but that mistake of calling me Jonas set off every alarm bell in my head. I didn't blow up. I just got quiet. She apologized repeatedly, swearing it was nothing and blaming it on wedding stress. I nodded along, but inside, I felt sick to my stomach. If it really meant nothing, why was another man so present in her mind while she was talking to me? Her future husband? My gut tells me she's been having an emotional affair with this guy. Maybe it hasn't become physical. I have no proof of that, but something is definitely not right. The way she talks about him, the way her face lights up when she gets a text from him. I noticed all of it, even as I tried to ignore it amidst all the wedding excitement. Now I'm sitting here, 3 days away from getting married, wondering if my fiancé truly loves me. I'm starting to think she just wants to marry me for my money or the stability I provide, not for real love. For context, I'm doing well financially. I have a solid career as a project manager and have been paying for most of our future plans. She has always been excited about the apartment we share, the new car, the honeymoon I planned, and the comfortable life we were building. I hate to think this way, but part of me wonders if that's the real reason she wants to get married so quickly. Meanwhile, her heart might belong to this other guy. Our wedding is pretty much paid for and ready to go. It's a 150-person event that costs about $18,000 in total. Canceling now would be a logistical and financial disaster. We would lose all the deposits and upset a lot of people. But how can I go through with this? I haven't confronted her beyond that awkward moment. Today, she's acting super affectionate, as if nothing happened, but I can't get it out of my head. I haven't told anyone else. I feel ashamed and heartbroken. This is supposed to be one of the happiest times of my life, and instead, I'm here questioning if my fiancé is in love with someone else. I'm also angry. Angry that she put me in this situation right before the wedding. If she really has feelings for this coworker, why not be honest before we got this far? And if she doesn't, then what is going on? At this point, I'm considering calling off the wedding, but I don't know if I'm overreacting. There are 3 days left, and the invitations are out. Guests are flying in from out of state. Everything will be chaos if I cancel. Last night, I glanced at her phone while she was in the shower, but of course, it's now password protected, something she started doing recently, which I find incredibly suspicious. I feel trapped. My heart is telling me this is a massive red flag that I would be a fool to ignore. I love her so much, or at least I thought I did. Now I'm not sure who she really is. Is she the woman who wants to be my life partner, or someone settling for me while her heart is somewhere else? I also wonder if I'm ready to marry someone I don't fully trust. The answer, right now, is no. I haven't slept well since that night. She's acting like everything is normal, texting me about cake flavors and timeline details as if she didn't just call me another man's name. I'm barely responding. I told her I was busy wrapping things up at work before taking time off for the wedding. She seems to have bought it for now. I feel lost and completely broken. Our wedding is in 3 days, and I'm looking at my suit hanging in the closet feeling like this is all a sham. I always thought we had a solid relationship, not perfect, but one built on love and trust. Now, I question everything. I really need an outside perspective or advice because I don't know how to proceed. I just needed to vent and get some clarity. Update. First off, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. I read as many as I could. The overwhelming advice was not to go through with the wedding given the circumstances, and that aligned with what my gut was screaming at me. A lot has happened in these past few days. I made my decision pretty quickly. I was not going to marry her. Once that was clear in my head, I started planning how to get out with as little drama as possible. I didn't confront my fiancée again about the coworker. In fact, I basically avoided her for the last couple of days before the wedding. We were already staying in separate places, she at her parents' house to help with preparations, and me at our apartment. That distance made it easier. I kept our conversations short and strictly logistical. If she suspected something was up, she didn't show it, probably too busy with last-minute details and enjoying time with her bridesmaids. The night before the wedding, there was a small rehearsal dinner for the immediate family and wedding party. I didn't show up. I just didn't go. Instead, I spent that evening packing my essential and personal belongings from our apartment. I know it was a pretty cold move, but I couldn't face her and everyone else, plastering on a fake smile knowing I was planning to disappear the next day. While I was packing, I turned off my phone to avoid the flood of calls. Apparently, people were trying to reach me when I was a no-show at the dinner. I later learned my brother, who was my best man, covered for me by saying I wasn't feeling well. He had no idea what I was actually doing. I hadn't told anyone my plan at that point. I feel bad for dragging him into a lie, but I panicked. Very early on the morning of the wedding, I quietly left town. I packed my suit, the ring, and a suitcase into my car and drove 2 hours to my parents' house. I left the engagement ring box on our kitchen counter with a note that said, "Sorry, I can't do this." It was short, not sweet. I didn't explain about the situation in the note. I figured we would talk later, or she would put 2 and 2 together. My main goal was just to be gone before she realized it. Looking back, maybe I should have said more or at least sent a text, but I was a mess and just wanted out. So yes, I literally disappeared on my wedding day. It still feels unreal to type it out. I was running on adrenaline and grief. By the time I got to my parents' house, I already had dozens of missed calls and frantic texts. I turned my phone off again and just slept for hours, emotionally exhausted. Now, the wedding itself. This is where things went from sad to almost farcical. Since I hadn't officially told anyone and had just left, everyone showed up to the wedding venue as planned, except for me. My family eventually found out I wasn't coming. My parents knew I was at their house, obviously, and discreetly told some relatives. But my fiancée and her family were at the venue, all dressed up, waiting for me to arrive. I can't imagine the storm that was brewing there. From what a friend who was there told me, my fiancée arrived at the venue in her wedding dress with her bridesmaids, greeting guests as if everything was fine. Apparently, she was telling everyone I was just running late due to a family emergency. I felt a deep sense of embarrassment hearing that she either tried to save face or actually believed I would just be late. People were waiting around awkwardly. One of my aunts told me that for the first half hour after the start time, guests just milled around, drinking and murmuring, confused. My fiancé kept repeating, "He's on his way." He just had to deal with something important. I can't fathom what was going through her mind, whether she really thought I would show up at some point or if she was just in denial. After enough time had passed with no groom, it all fell apart. Some guests started leaving when it became clear I wasn't coming. There was a lot of commotion. Her father trying to calm people down, the bridesmaids crying, my friends texting my brother asking what the heck was going on. Eventually, someone, I think her mother, announced that due to unforeseen circumstances, the wedding would not be taking place that day. The polite way of saying the groom vanished. I can only imagine the humiliation and shock her family felt. I stayed holed up at my parents' house, avoiding all the chaos. I will admit, I felt terrible for doing it this way. This woman I loved, or thought I loved, was standing there in her beautiful dress in front of everyone, realizing I wasn't coming. Part of me wanted to go and at least have a face-to-face confrontation, but I knew it would be a disaster with so many emotions and people around, and frankly, I wasn't ready to face her or anyone. Later that day, after the reception would have started, I finally turned on my phone to face the music. It was a flood of angry, confused, and worried messages, a mix of everything. My fiancé, or ex-fiancé, I guess, had texted and called countless times. Her messages ranged from, "Where are you? Please, I'm getting scared," to, "How could you do this to me?" And a lot of, "Please just answer. Can we fix this?" I didn't respond at the time. I also had messages from her parents. It was overwhelming. So I sent a general text to a few key people saying, "I'm safe. I couldn't go through with the wedding. I'll explain when I'm ready." Then I turned my phone off again. I know it's cowardly, but I just couldn't deal with it right then. My parents were supportive when I told them some of what happened. I told them I believed she had been involved with a coworker, and I discovered something unforgivable. I was a bit vague at first. They were shocked, but immediately told me I could stay as long as I needed, and that they were proud of me for not trapping myself in a bad marriage. Having them on my side helped, though I'm still processing everything. I still haven't spoken to my ex-fiancée directly, and honestly, I don't know what I'll say when I do. Part of me is furious with her for putting me in this position. If she hadn't betrayed me, none of this drama would have happened. But another part of me feels guilty for the way I left, basically leaving her to face everyone alone. It was the nuclear option, no doubt. I'm not proud of it, but at the same time, I feel a strange sense of relief that it's over. She made her choices, and I made mine. That's where things stand. Right after the non-wedding, I'm laying low at my parents' house. She has tried to contact me and even called their landline, but I've asked them not to put her through just yet. I need a little more time before I face that confrontation. Maybe it's selfish or immature, but I am emotionally drained. To everyone who advised me to put myself first and not go through with it, thank you. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I know in my heart it was the right decision. I will update again when I've collected my thoughts and have more to say, like the financial side of this disaster that I haven't even touched on yet, and the fallout with her family. For now, I just want to catch my breath and maybe sleep for 14 hours straight. Update 2. I'm back with more context and fallout. It's been a few days since the non-wedding. I've since had some real conversations with her and others and realized a couple of things I should clarify from my previous posts. Emotions were running high, so I left out some details. First, about the $18,000 wedding cost. I saw a lot of comments about the money and whether I could get any of it back. The truth is, most of that money wasn't even mine. I probably should have mentioned that, but I was heartbroken and not thinking clearly when I wrote the original post. The bulk of the wedding expenses were paid by her parents as a gift to us, really to their daughter. From the start of the planning, I offered to pay a significant portion, but her parents, being very traditional, insisted on covering most of the big-ticket items. They transferred a large sum to me a few months ago, specifically for the venue and caterer, telling me it was their contribution, essentially a gift. So I used that money, plus some from my side for things like the DJ and tux rentals, to pay the vendors. My fiancée didn't know her parents had given me that money. I suspect she thought I was paying for most of it, which might have been one of the reasons she saw me as a good financial prospect. It's a bit of a tangled situation. Her parents wanted to surprise her by showing their support, and I never brought it up. All of that money is basically lost. Nothing was refundable this close to the date. Venue, catering, photographer, all of it was paid for and gone. And you know what? I honestly don't care about the lost money. I know $18,000, really more like $15,000 from her parents and $3,000 from me and my family, is a lot. But given the circumstances, money was the last thing on my mind when I called off the wedding. I wasn't going to stay in a possibly sham marriage just to not waste cash. And since it mostly wasn't my money, I guess it was easier to be indifferent. I haven't even looked into partial refunds from vendors. I figured that would be something her family could handle or we could discuss later. Right now, it's low on the priority list compared to the emotional fallout. Speaking of fallout, I did eventually speak to my ex-fiancée, not in person yet, but on the phone. A couple of days after the wedding disaster, when I felt a bit more stable, I answered one of her dozens of calls. The conversation was intense, though strangely calm at times. She was obviously devastated, alternating between crying and sounding angry or confused. She asked how I could humiliate her and her family like that, why I didn't at least warn her first. I stood my ground and said something like, "You know why? I know about you and Jonas." She went quiet and tried to deny any wrongdoing. "It's not what you think. Nothing physical happened," and so on. I told her, it doesn't matter. An emotional affair, or whatever you want to call it, is a betrayal, and I can't marry someone I don't trust. She kept saying she was sorry, that it was just a stupid friendship that crossed some lines because she was stressed about the wedding. She claimed I was working a lot and wasn't as emotionally available in recent months, so she ended up confiding in this coworker. Maybe there's some truth to that. I was working long hours to save up and also clear my schedule for the honeymoon. But still, running to another man for emotional support and then calling me by his name is unacceptable. She insisted she never intended to leave me or replace me and that marrying me was still what she wanted. I replied, "You wanted to marry me? Why? For my money? Because this doesn't feel like love when you're whispering another guy's name." That made her angry, and she swore it had nothing to do with money. She said she loved me, but I told her if she truly loved me, she wouldn't have disrespected me by basically having an emotional boyfriend on the side. The call ended with her begging to meet in person to talk, and me telling her I needed more time. I also made it very clear, the wedding is off for good. I'm not reconsidering. She just started sobbing again before hanging up. It was hard to hear, to be honest. Despite everything, I hate that it came to this. The next day or so, she sent me some text messages, basically apologizing and explaining herself. The summary is that nothing physical ever happened with Jonas, that she realized she crossed boundaries by getting so emotionally involved with a work friend, and that she admits to hiding texts and feelings from me that she should have shared. Apparently, he was having relationship problems too, and they bonded over mutual experiences, and it got out of hand. She said calling me his name was a horrible mistake that made her realize she'd messed up. In one message, she even wrote, "I was going to confess everything after the honeymoon. I didn't want to ruin the wedding, and I thought we could work through it." That just made me shake my head, like she thought I'd be fine with finding out later. Or maybe she just wanted to save the wedding and the gifts. Who knows? I haven't responded to most of those texts, though I've read them over and over, trying to understand her mindset. From her perspective, she was lonely or stressed and found a connection with someone else. But she still wanted our life together. She keeps saying I'm the one she wants to marry, that I'm stable and loving and we have history. Whereas the coworker thing was a fleeting emotional fling she regrets. It's like she's trying to minimize what she did because it wasn't physical, but for me, the damage is done. The trust is broken. Now, about her parents, because boy, that's a whole other thing. As you can imagine, they were not happy at all that I disappeared on the day of the wedding they paid for. Her father tried to call me that night, probably to yell at me or demand an explanation, but I didn't answer. Before I end this update, I want to note that I'm still staying at my parents' house. I took the week off work. Thankfully, my boss was understanding. I just told him the wedding was called off due to irreconcilable differences, and he didn't ask any more questions. I haven't been back to the apartment I share with my ex, but I'll have to soon to sort out my things. She, I believe, has been staying at her parents' since the fiasco, so at least I won't run into her if I go over to grab more of my belongings. We'll have to figure out the lease later, since it's in both our names and there are still a few months left on it. That's the boring logistical stuff I haven't had the energy to face yet. Emotionally, I'm okay, I guess. Numb, but okay. I get angry when I think about the betrayal, but I also feel relieved that I dodged a bullet. I stand by my decision to call it off. Even if she didn't sleep with the guy, the fact that she was capable of this kind of emotional deception right up to our wedding is a sign something was very wrong. I deserve someone who actually loves me, and only me, when we're about to get married, not someone whose mind is on another man. Update 3. I finally had a direct conversation with her parents and explained exactly why I left. The result was pretty explosive, but not in the way I expected. A couple of days after the non-wedding, once I had calmed down a bit, I decided I owed her family an explanation. They had always been very kind to me throughout our relationship, and as I mentioned, they contributed a lot financially. I felt they deserved to know that I didn't just abandon their daughter on a whim or out of fear, but that there was a concrete reason. Also, selfishly, I didn't want them to hate me any more than they probably already did. At that point, I suspected my ex hadn't told them the full truth about why I left, if she admitted any fault at all. So I arranged to meet her parents in person. I drove over to their house with my mom, both for support and perhaps as a witness if things went south. When we arrived, her mother answered the door, and I could tell she'd been crying. Her father was visibly angry, arms crossed, the whole 9 yards. It was awkward as all get out. We sat down in the living room, and I just laid it all out. I apologized for the pain and embarrassment I caused. Then I told them that their daughter had been carrying on an emotional affair with a coworker and that, 3 days before the wedding, I found out enough to convince me I couldn't marry her. I described the name-calling incident. I also mentioned other signs, the secret texts, how I suspected she wasn't in the relationship for the right reasons. I tried to be as objective and calm as possible. This wasn't about slandering her, but about explaining why I did what I did. To my surprise, her parents' reaction shifted from anger at me to anger at her pretty quickly. Her mom's face just crumpled in pure disappointment. Her dad's anger was redirected. He started asking specific questions. What coworker? For how long? How do you know it wasn't just stress? I answered what I could. I admitted I had no proof of a physical relationship, but that it was enough. I even showed them one of the texts she sent me afterward, where she basically admitted to having feelings for the guy, but claimed it didn't mean anything. So yes, I essentially threw my ex-fiancée under the bus, but I felt they needed the truth. I also told them I suspected she saw me more as a financial safety net than a true love, which explained why she still wanted to marry me even though her feelings were elsewhere. That was my interpretation. Anyway, her mom started sobbing, and her dad reacted differently. He went quiet, which is scarier than yelling. You could see it sinking in that not only was their money wasted, but their daughter had betrayed the commitment. He said something like, "We gave her everything for this wedding, and this is how she repays all of us." There was a strong sense that he saw her behavior as a personal betrayal to them, not just me. At one point, her father apologized to me, which I didn't expect. He said he was sorry I went through this and that he understood why I made the choice to leave. Her mom said I was embarrassed and didn't deserve what happened. It was honestly heartbreaking. I felt a little guilty seeing how devastated they were. They had really been looking forward to this wedding. They also mentioned how many of their family members had traveled and had to go home confused and disappointed. I made it clear that I didn't blame them at all. In fact, I thanked them for being so generous and kind to me. Also, to be clear, I told them I plan to pay them back some of the money they gifted for the wedding when I can, at least the part that wasn't used or what I managed to recover. They waved it off for now, but I meant it. They always treated me like family, and I feel awful about how it all ended. Here's where it gets heavy. While I was there, my ex-fiancée showed up. Turns out she was staying at a friend's that day, but her mom had texted her that I was over. So she drove to the house, possibly thinking there was a chance for reconciliation or at least a face-to-face talk. She walked in and froze when she saw me and my mom sitting with her parents. Her father immediately laid into her, demanding to know if what I said was true. She got defensive, saying I was exaggerating and that it was just a friendship. That did not go over well. I've rarely seen her dad raise his voice in all the years I've known him, but he did then. He yelled something like, "We spent all this money, and you couldn't even keep your focus on your fiancée." He was red with fury. It was an ugly, ugly scene. My ex got mad at her parents, saying it was none of their business and I shouldn't have involved them. She said this was between her and me, but her dad wasn't having it. Between you two? Do you realize half the town knows you were left at the altar, and now we find out it's because you couldn't be loyal? At that point, I stood up and said, "Maybe we should leave so you can talk privately." My ex turned to me and shouted, "You had no right to tell them." This was humiliating enough. I responded, "They had every right to know why this happened. I'm not going to lie for you." She was crying and yelled, "You're no saint. You handled this like a coward." Honestly, I just shook my head and said, "Maybe I did, but that doesn't change what you did first." My mom tugged on my arm, signaling for us to leave, and we did, leaving my ex-fiancée alone with her furious parents. It was intense, not exactly the closure I imagined, but it happened. Later that evening, her father called me. He told me he and his wife spoke with their daughter after we left. According to him, she finally broke down and admitted to at least an emotional affair. Apparently, she tried to downplay it again, saying it was never physical, but who knows? They weren't buying it. Her dad sounded both angry and deeply sad. He said, "I don't know where we went wrong with her." I tried to console him, saying, "Sometimes people make mistakes and lose their way." I wasn't trying to make them feel like bad parents. Then he said something that surprised me. They told their daughter that, for now, they're fed up with her. They were basically so furious and disappointed that they told her not to speak to them for a while. They even suggested she stay somewhere else indefinitely. I guess she was supposed to move back in with them for a bit after the wedding until we sorted out our living situation. From what he implied, they're also cutting her off financially. I don't know the full details of their arrangement, but I do know they occasionally helped her with money, like paying her car insurance and so on. He said she needed to learn that actions have consequences. I just listened. It really wasn't my place to comment, but inside I was thinking, wow, that's a strong consequence. I'm not going to lie. There was a grim sense of justice hearing that my ex basically brought this on herself, and that now even her own parents are fed up with her. It's sad, but this was the kind of karma some of you predicted. Not only did she lose me, but she also ruined her relationship with her mother and father, at least for now, and lost the huge investment they made in a wedding that never happened. Not to mention the hit to her reputation among friends and family, who will inevitably now know why the wedding was canceled. I didn't make a public announcement or anything, but word gets around. Apparently, even her own cousin knows and has been talking about it. As for me, her dad told me I'm welcome to call or visit them anytime and that they consider me family, even if I'm not their son-in-law. That was touching. I doubt I'll be hanging out with them regularly or anything, but I appreciated the gesture. He also told me, half joking, don't worry about the money, it's not your problem. She can explain to us one day why she wasted it. So I guess they're taking the loss and not holding me responsible. I still feel a bit bad about it, but at least they don't seem to hate me. At this point, the emotional affair is completely out in the open, and everyone involved knows why the wedding fell apart. My ex has been relatively quiet since that blow-up at her parents' house. She hasn't tried to contact me again. I think she knows there isn't much left to say. Maybe she's busy dealing with her parents, or, who knows, maybe turning to Jonas for comfort. For my part, I feel more at peace now that the truth is on the table for all parties. It's like a weight has been lifted. I no longer have to hide the reason or protect her feelings. Everything is clear. It's a shame it had to happen in such a dramatic fashion. But hey, better now than after the vows and a legal commitment, right? If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.